4 days of the same story here, but we are very excited about this season, primarily because of some normalcy actually this year. So we went from all kinds of, and I'm not going to roll through it today. I've been talking about it for days, but all kinds of adversity last year. Tip of the iceberg was 12 away games and 58 guys in the portal. And when I first got there, hiring the staff, all that stuff. No stadium. It's just we had all the excuses, and we went through a very, very tumultuous, adversity-driven season. It was the most bizarre and most challenging I've ever had in 2025. I am super thankful for the work that our players did from the 2025 roster. Many of them are done now because of from an eligibility standpoint, graduation. But the reason I'm thankful is because they did everything that we asked. Our team fought last year through a lot of adversity, and that is the blueprint and the foundation that we have enjoyed this year, because there have been many days where, and Coach Ray's back sitting in the back here, he knows that, man, this day was a heck of a lot different than that same day the year before, because it was just about football this spring. Last year, just to give you an idea, we recruited and had a recruit on campus just about every single day, including the weekend, for the entire semester, right on through the last day we were allowed to have someone on campus in June. So June 22nd, June 23rd. This year, with the exception of 2 people, an offensive lineman and a corner that we signed during the spring, we were done recruiting January 23rd. And that gave us an opportunity to enjoy the staff that was coming back. I think we're one of 9 programs in the country that have all of their coaches back and that have only had one change out. And that was offensive line coach Jack McNeil came in to replace offensive line coach A.J. Hop. And so this will be our 4th stop together. So there's some continuity and stability that we're enjoying with the staff now. The 3 factions that make up your roster, your high school class that was 9 that became 4 last spring. We have brought in 18 that we have actually recruited, know their parents, did some legwork, have a lot invested in them, and half of them were on campus this spring. Half of them came in June. Also enjoyed 92 players on campus this spring, which is, in my 37 years of coaching, it's the most I've ever had this spring. Even with the normalcy of a lot of the years that I've been a part of. Just because we're able to sign so many over the winter time and in January. So that gave us an opportunity to build culture a little bit sooner and to have some continuity with our players. Last year, we brought in 36 players in June just to fulfill the roster. This year, we brought in 12 freshmen, many of whom did a lot to be in and around us all spring. So they didn't come in clueless. They came in knowing the team and understanding, the way we do things. And so I am very excited about getting to August 4th when we report our kids, and then we'll open up obviously in Alabama at Troy. That'll be a tough one on September 5th. And with that, if anybody has any questions, we have to answer.
We'll start in person with our questions. Please raise your hand and identify yourself with name and affiliation before asking the question.
Sports Talk. But what was the common theme or themes that you, when you came to recruiting as a portal this go around?
Well, I remember, to be really honest with you, Colin, it was very different because last year we were filling 58 spots that were all gone before I even got hired, and we had no funding to replace them. And to give you an idea, there are still thousands of players in the portal right now, and they call us on a daily basis, and they're all looking for homes because they don't have one. And these are the best players in the portal went early. They went in January when everybody was recruiting. And it's no disrespect to them. That's just the way this thing works, right? You've got better players, they're going to get taken first. That is the pool that we were recruiting from all last spring. And we were doing it with very little to no funding. So this year, it changed drastically because of the commitment and the leadership by Dr. White, our president, and Bobby Williams, our AD, they had a plan in place, and we are competitive now with rev share in our conference. And it gave us an opportunity to really do a lot of homework in the off season So we knew who we wanted. We knew who we wanted to go after, and we had the funding to be able to go do that. Would I like more funding and better players? Absolutely, right? But that we were very happy with the class that we brought in. It was not 58 this year; it was 31. You know, we didn't have a class of 9 freshmen this year that we didn't recruit. We had 18 that we signed. You know, and then the 40 some odd players that we brought back last year were players that I had never met, we had never evaluated, we didn't know, weren't necessarily the top 45 players on your roster. Most of those guys were the ones that went into the portal, not all of them. And I love these guys that are back. But this year, that 40 something nucleus knows our coaches, they know our philosophy, they know logistically how we're going to do everything, and we have relationships with them. And they are the nucleus, and they are helping us teach the guys that we brought in January. But bringing them all in January, also you get them all together. They know each other. There's a lot of continuity, and so that's going to pay great dividends heading into the fall.
Right up front.
Jonathan Denning with 101.7 KSAM, Knoxville, Texas. Coach, you mentioned normalcy, you mentioned funding. In today's modern college football, how big is it to be able to keep that core nucleus of guys? And, you know, how does going into roster retention in the offseason, what does that mean for getting guys like Megan Locke to come back, Dean Voorhees here, but you know, other guys, Ultimate Castle, who was banged up last year?
Well, the retention piece is absolutely invaluable. And I could be sitting here at Notre Dame or my alma mater, D3 Rome University, and I'd be saying the same thing. It is becoming a very transactional relationship. And we're forced into that because of the money, the financing. But I think you lose the opportunity to develop the culture you really want. I think you will retain less when you don't have relationships. I also don't think that you can develop the team at the rate that maybe they can be developed if you can't push a kid to a point where he's very uncomfortable and he's facing a lot of adversity and you know those days where it may not be a great day for them because we're going to push them to the point to where they won't go, right? That's our job. You can't do that if you don't have a relationship with players. You know, if they trust you and they're not happy with you at that moment in practice, they have faith in what you're telling them and what you're doing and how you're pushing them. When that is not the case and all they're thinking about is money and it's 109 individuals, you're just not going to have the same development, which is going to lead to lesser success. And so I think that the relational piece is the biggest key to retaining guys. And when we retained 40 some odd guys, all of whom we wanted. And they are 46, 47 coaches coming back that we didn't have last year. You know, they're standing in the front of the line, and as we're doing a drill, they're able to turn around to the new guys and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is how we do it. But we had none of that last year. You know, we were coaching coaches last year and then coaching players, and half of them trying to figure out where the rest of them is. So, I mean, it was just a completely different scenario. This year, our plan is set, it's in place. Now, we haven't won a game this year, so I tend to say I like to think about it as we're still undefeated, and we're going to do the best we can between now and September 5th to have our guys ready to roll.
Questions here?
Avery Wheelock with you, Samuel. Coach, what is impressed you the most about your team in the offseason?
I alluded to it yesterday. It's the continuity and the fact that they're a pretty unified group right now. And we have taken some steps we didn't have time to take last year because of, you know, when you think about your workday, whatever you do right now, and then add 6 hours, you got to take a 6-hour chunk out of that day. And it's not in a row. It's going to be 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours at a recruiting dinner at the end of the evening to go recruit somebody. And that's how our workday was every day last year. And I'm not complaining, it's our job, but that's not the normal deal, right? And so this year, that's how it was. And I just think we are in a much better place right now because of what we have been discussing here. We get up every morning knowing exactly what we're going to do. The players do, the coaches do. We go to bed every night knowing what the goal is tomorrow. And I think it'll pay dividends. I know that our guys are tight right now. But we've done everything we could to try to integrate the offensive players and the defensive players because there's a natural division that occurs when you're working on different sides of the building. And, they're trying to stop everybody, and these guys are trying to score on everybody. And then in between, you've got to bring them all together for special teams. But there's not a lot of interaction other than the competition on the field. A lot of team bonding, a lot of activities, a lot of community involvement, a lot of development off the field that didn't exist in this program last year just because there wasn't time for it. So I think we have a really good plan, and our plan is to build this thing year by year so that when we get there, we get where we want this program to be, we can sustain the success.
Coach, we got a question on Zoom from Thomas from the league winners. You've credited Mike Leach as a major influence to you. Can you talk about that influence and how you put your own spin on what you learned and any of the wrinkles you're going to add to honor him in the process?
I can't speak about Mike Leach without a smile, but and I miss him dearly. I always say this, and this is part of the relationship that we have with our players. I would not be sitting here doing what I've dreamed about doing my whole life. I'm going into year 38, and I feel blessed every day. And I can honestly tell all of you, I have not driven to work one day. And I've said this to a few of you already. Not one day in my 37 years not wanting to go to work. And that's fortunate in its own right. And I feel blessed that I'm able to say that because not everybody is. And so there's a huge influence from John Bunning, who was my former college coach, a huge influence. And then George DeLeon, some of you may remember him when he was at Baylor, but long regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. And George is not with us anymore. And obviously Mike Leach passed a couple years ago. And my weeks are quieter now without him. He would call every week, or I would call every week in season, and he'd always ask for some wrinkles, and I would piss him off because I'd send him a running play, which he doesn't want to talk about. We're going to run the ball a little bit more than Mike did. I still remember visiting him. I know Lubbock so well. When we go back out there, I almost felt like I coached there. He offered me a job every year for 15 years, and I said, "You gonna let me call plays?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Again, I'm not going," because he and I both want to do the same thing. So philosophically, our offense is based out of that philosophy that he taught me in the air raid, and but we've applied that to the run game as well, so that we're not one dimensional. We want to allow, and we trust our players on offense. We give them a lot of flexibility, and that's what that philosophy is. I think it's the best way in college football or pro football to throw it, and so we continue to do that. But we're going to emphasize the run game as well, and he always knew that. But I can sit here and talk about Mike until midnight. I'm not going to do that, but I would not be here right now without that man. And I am I very much appreciate my experiences with those three guys, and I would hope that I and my staff can be those people in the lives of our players. And that sounds like coach speak, but I say that sincerely.
Any more questions in the room? Yep. Second row and then first row.
Corey Hope, March to the Pot. Coach, Sarkisian was asked the other day about calling plays still. What I'm curious about from your vantage point are some of those challenges you face when you add those duties to that of a head coach.
So I think to undergo, to approach calling an offensive game as the head coach. And again, I learned how to do it from Mike because he called every play in the history of his career. And so Sark answered it in a way that I thought I probably would have answered it the same way. Like, it keeps you engrossed in the sport. I've worked with some coaches. They say they're the CEO and that's their approach and that's what they want to do. I'm very thankful that that's the approach Mac Brown took. He let you coach. Mac never came into the offensive staff. And, he used to say, if I got to tell you how to run the offense or coach how to run the defense, this is why the heck did I hire you guys? And he's right. And so, however, I afford that to Coach Raisback in the back. He runs special teams. And Coach Lindsey runs the defense. You need people like that that can handle that faction of the team that you can trust to do that without micromanaging everything. To free me up to do what I'm doing right now, and that is that's why it was so hard last year to be the lead fundraiser, to be the head coach, to be the offensive coordinator, which I'm not. Zach Patterson is our offensive coordinator, and he does 80% of the work during the week. The area offensively that I'm involved in is the game planning piece, which I would be involved in anyway, and I know what we're doing defensively, special teams, and I'm going to know what we're doing offensively. My biggest part of it is the play call, and that is because of the relationship I have with our quarterbacks who I'm coaching. There is a faction of my job, an area of my job that if I could not lean on other people to do, it would not free me up to be the head coach and the play caller. Coach Razorback sitting in the back of the room, that's my associate head coach. He's not the associate head coach with name only. He's the associate head coach because he has legitimate duties that are no longer on my desk, and he does them at a high level. And he probably does them in a more organized fashion than I would, because trying to do all of that is going to spread anybody too thin, right? Coach Lindsay affords me that flexibility and some time because he handles the defense. And Coach Patterson takes a lot of that off my plate on offense. And so I will never expand the role outside of game planning and play call. But I probably will do that until I'm done coaching.
Christian, I'm kind of keep with you. So what are the team's biggest strength once the regular season starts?
Wow, that's a good question. So because there are so many new faces, that's a hard question to answer from an individual positional standpoint. But I would say this: we actually have depth this year. So one of the strengths that we're going to enjoy that we did not enjoy last year is we'll have more depth in each room. We got longer, we got taller, we got faster, we got bigger, and we satisfied a lot of those things in each of the rooms through the recruiting piece. We also, with the 46 or 47 guys coming back, those are better versions of themselves because of one of my best hires in Blair Vaughn, our strength coach. And so our guys, after 12 months, don't look anything like what they looked like when they showed up on campus. And that is because of Coach Vaughn and his staff. And that's in my opinion, one of the most important hires a head coach can make, is the guy that's going to develop them away from the field. So those guys are better. And I think that the overall ability level from an explosiveness or a change of direction or a strength standpoint is going to be better. And then we're going to lean on depth more. The days of Antavius Fish, who was our starting middle linebacker, playing 35 reps, puking all over the field, and then strapping it back up to go play the next 35, should be over here because we actually have somebody to spell them. I always tell people, A.J. Brown, the first 2 games I was at Ole Miss, averaged 83, 84 plays a game. And he had 98 receiving yards and a little under a touchdown a game. And then we started playing Elijah Moore, who went on to lead all college football receiving the next year because of the work he got. But we started spelling AJ. We knocked his reps down to 55, 56 reps a game. Now he's going for 130 a game and a touchdown and a half a game because he's fresher, and you see more of what he was truly capable of instead of wearing him out all day. And that is the benefit to having depth. And then you're also you're developing the guy behind him. And so Elijah filled AJ's shoes nicely after they graduated. But I always use that example because it's a perfect example of just the benefit for your team. And then you have more depth for special teams. And so that's probably going to be the biggest noticeable strength that we have going into this season. And I have my assumptions and my predictions for who are going to have big seasons here, but all of that happens because of how unified the room is. And that is the other piece, is that the culture is completely in place. And if I had to name the second strength after the depth piece, I'd say it's the culture that exists right now.
Coach, you got a question on Zoom, and I know we've done this one in person as well. How are you incorporating AI in your program this season? How are you using that to help your evaluation processes?
So that's a great question. It is, I think it's inevitable that everybody is going to wind up using it, or they're going to be at a disadvantage. I think there are some areas that are a little overrated. It still comes down to our knowledge of the game and our ability to coach and teach. But when you can take something, Coach Trailer at the Texas High School Coaches Association, he went off on ChatGPT and AI and all that stuff, and it obviously, I think he kind of referred to it as his second wife. I may be misquoting, but that is what he was alluding to, and he was trying to just get across how important that has become in their program. And it is ours. So we did an evaluation in the spring. I don't even know if our staff knows, but our chief of staff, Mike Reed, and I and a couple others have gone through this process. And we're actually going to meet with some people here when we get back next week. And we have applied some of the AI advantages to our evaluation process, our game planning process, just the organizational stuff. Or any time you can add that and streamline a job so that, one, I can get my coaches out of the office earlier, and get them some sleep and let them see their wives and their families, it's a benefit. Anytime we can do something and remain as organized and do it in 3 hours instead of 7 hours, it's an advantage. So we are not fully where we want to be with it yet, but we're heading that way. And every day that goes by, we'll take more advantage of AI.
You got one more in person? Yeah, right down the second row.
You mentioned earlier being the quarterback's coach, so just what progress have you seen from Landon coming off that rehab ACL to now being QB1 for the squad?
It's been interesting because I loved him in high school, and we signed him at Wisconsin. Our plan when he came here was to redshirt him last year. And there's a few things that I won't share, but they're also positive about Landon. It's just a little bit more private, but to give you an idea what Landon's all about, he came into the office mid-season, and not from an ego-driven standpoint at all. He just said, "Listen, if I can play and help the team now, I don't care about my red shirt here." He was coming off of knee rehab, and we just thought, let's build him. He was 198 pounds, now he's 220 pounds. You know what I mean? And he's stronger and more durable, and he's running well, and all that. But by mid-season, he just said, "Coach, I'm not worried about the shirt. I just want to help the team." And so we began to look at him differently because he was performing well in practice. And, I think it just became the right move for this football team towards the end of the year. And so he started a bunch of games, played in 6 or 7, probably started 4 if I remember correctly. And those reps and those decisions and that game speed experience paid great dividends in the spring because he just looked like a different quarterback. He looked like what I envisioned when we recruited him. And so with that comes the confidence that he has and the leadership that he provided our team. So we are thrilled to have some continuity in that room. And I'm very excited also about the young talent that we brought in this year. So I'm having as much fun coaching the quarterback room right now as I've had since we had Jacoby Criswell, Drake May, and Sam Howell in the same room, and so I don't know if we're that talented yet, but I know we are bright and we are eager to play and we're obsessed about the game. And those are things you need at that position, and Landon certainly has those qualities.
All right, Coach. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you. Y'all enjoy your summer.